you all for joining us today. My name's Vicky and I'm one of the trustees here at PoTS UK. I'm very excited to be here with you all on Zoom. I'm co-hosting this webinar with Lorna, and I hope all of our attendees come away from this and have gained a little something from the coming hour. Lorna will be covering Pilates this afternoon, and it's specifically aimed towards those with hypermobility and postural tachycardia syndrome. Lorna is a fully trained and qualified, highly skilled Pilates instructor. Myself as a trustee and representative of PoTS UK just wanted to add a little something to the start of this webinar, explain that this may not be for everyone, and that's perfectly okay. We understand, and I especially, with having both EDS and PoTS myself, I know that joining us here today, everyone has different levels of illnesses and abilities. No one size fits all with this condition, so please don't feel you need to join in if you're not able to. Just sit back and watch and take notes if you wish, but if you do feel like you're able to take part and follow Lorna's lead, we hope that you enjoy and feel the benefits of some of these gentle exercises today. We wanted to make it clear though, that although Lorna is qualified and definitely knows her stuff, she's unable to see any of you that are taking part, which means she's not able to see if somebody may be interpreting her guidance incorrectly. Therefore, we have to say that if anyone does decide to take part in today's sessions and was to develop an injury from the following guidance in this webinar, PoTS UK will not be held liable for such an incident occurring. If you're unsure as to whether you are able to take part in Pilates classes or these webinars, then please do contact your own healthcare professionals to double check. That being said, Pilates is a very low level form of exercise, and we would encourage those who are able to do the following to do so and hopefully enjoy it. That's all the heavy stuff out of the way, and I'm pleased to hand over to Lorna for a nice relaxing hour of Pilates. I will be on hand, Lorna, if you need me for anything, just shout. I'll mute my audio and I'll hand over to you.
Thank you. I very much back what Vicky has said already in terms of the disclaimer, but I'll come back to that. So I'm going to cover a little bit about who I am, also why I think Pilates is so good for people with PoTS and hypermobility. So some of the benefits of Pilates, I'm going to do some demonstrating of some of the exercises that I teach in Pilates, and just think a little bit about what next in terms of how do you take this forward and some things to look out for. So who am I? Lorna Nicholson. I was one of the key founders of PoTS UK in 2010. So was chair for quite a few years and then handed it over to Leslie, mainly so I can focus on Pilates, and that's what I've been doing. I'm very passionate about Pilates and working with people with PoTS and hypermobility. I'm also an advanced nurse practitioner working in primary care, so I basically see patients as well as identify lots of people with PoTS and hypermobility who've been stuck in the system for many years, helping them get appropriate diagnoses. I have PoTS myself. I have had PoTS for about 13 plus years. I'm very, very well managed now on medication. Do life more than to the full. In relation to that, I love other forms of exercise. So if I'm not teaching Pilates, you'll find me walking, riding my bike, climbing if you can, skiing, just general fitness and exercise. So I'm very happy to talk more about exercise in general in the future. So I got into Pilates for myself because when I was quite symptomatic with PoTS and without any medication, my joints, I think I lost my muscle tone. My muscles just became deconditioned because just simple activities, doing what I normally do was so hard. My muscles went flop, my joints went flop. And I went to see a physio who said Pilates would be a really good thing for you to do. So I started doing Pilates for myself and really enjoyed it. I thought, I can do this. This is really nice. And I'm getting out, I'm meeting people. And then I thought, do you know, this is such a good form of activity for people with this condition because a lot of it is done horizontal. So you're taking gravity out of it. And then from there, I went on to train with body control Pilates. So why is Pilates good for people with PoTS and hypermobility? As I said, it's horizontal, which is great, takes the gravity away. But ultimately, we don't want you to just do horizontal exercise, but it's a good starting point to then build up to more upright exercise. It can help with controlling range of movement when you're hypermobile. Sometimes joints are hypermobile, sometimes they don't move enough. And so it can be a bit of both. So encouraging joints to release if needed, or reining in movement where needed. There's a real balance between mobility versus stability. So it's your ability to stabilize joints and move joints in a controlled way. So it's about correct movement patterning, which is really important when you're hypermobile, and often the movement patterning is not correct. The wrong muscles are working in the wrong order, which uses energy. So anything we can do to get the muscles working in the right way, the joints working but in a controlled way without using unnecessarily energy, will just help you a little bit. It will save a spoon or two in the long run, in the rest of your life. It's precise, and I love the precision of movement that comes with Pilates. It's difficult. The movements look simple, but to do it well, it's difficult and challenging. It's not about high level, make it really hard. One thing I learned through my training was more is less. The easier looking exercises can actually be some of the harder exercises, and to do it well will serve you well. Other benefits of Pilates, it can dampen down the autonomic nervous system and dampen down the sort of stress response that gets a bit heightened with PoTS. And the way that it works in that way is by thinking a bit about breathing, as Jane mentioned last week, thinking about the mindfulness. So it takes a lot of concentration to be able to do the simple movements well. You've got to be very much in the moment, focused on what you are doing. Relaxation, a lot of people finish a class and just say they feel calmer. And it can prevent deconditioning, like my experience of my muscles going all a bit floppy. Just doing something to maintain your muscle tone, even though it's not as easy to go and do cardiovascular exercise, can really help with that. And then in relation to that, it can help muscle strength and endurance to then help you get back on your feet to do the sport and activity that you might wish to do. So it can also give you some tips and clues of exercises that you can do, sort of counter maneuvers that we talk about with PoTS. And if you stand up and start to feel dizzy, there's some Pilates type exercises that you can do and apply that can help you with that. So what I'm going to do is just go through some Pilates exercises. We'll just do some, not too many. As Vicky said, I can't see you. I have no idea if you're doing it correctly or not. So feel free to join in if you want to, but just know your limits, know your body, and don't partake if you feel it's too much for you. So I'm just going to move my laptop. So Vicky, if you can't see or hear me, please do give a shout. Or if I need to change my position.
Everything still looks perfect there, Lorna.
Great. So this is one of the start positions with Pilates. So we call it the relaxation position. It's not really a time to have a relax. But the first thing to think about Pilates, we talk a lot about what neutral is, neutral alignment, so the natural alignment. So you can probably see my head is on a head cushion. Not everyone will need a head cushion. It just depends on your body dimensions. My ribs, base of my ribs are in contact with the mat. I've got a bit of a gap here. This is my lumbar curve. We all naturally have a lumbar curve. Some people have more than the other. My pelvis is down on the mat and my feet are hip distance apart. So just being in that position, you can just focus on your alignment. A lot of people with hypermobility struggle with awareness of where their body is in relation to space. So that's another thing that Pilates can help with. Jane mentioned a lot about breathing. So there's quite a focus on breathing in Pilates, but sometimes we can focus too much on breathing and not so much on the movement. So I'm not going to mention too much about breathing other than whenever you do any form of exercise, just make sure you keep breathing naturally. So a simple exercise we can do is pelvic tilts, and this just helps raise awareness of your pelvic alignment. So it's a tiny movement of just tilting your pelvis using your deep abdominal muscles. You might not see very much, you might see a bit of something, but it's a tiny movement, just taking the pelvis in and out of its neutral alignment. Can help raise awareness of what neutral is. Then we're going to do some shoulder drops. So bringing your arms up towards the ceiling, and it's just reaching your fingertips up towards the ceiling and lowering back down towards the floor. So the elbows stay straight, shoulder blades are just moving. A lot of people with PoTS get a lot of pain in your upper back, neck, so any sort of movement of this area can be really helpful just to release some of that tension that's there. So there's some shoulder drops. I'm going to do what we call a knee opening. So this is where the challenge of stability versus mobility can come in. So the pelvis needs to stay stable, and I'm going to take one knee out to the side. But it's quite tricky to do without the pelvis tipping over or hitching one way or another, particularly if you're hypermobile. So it takes a lot of control to just engage the right muscles in the right way to achieve the movement that we're aiming to achieve. So there's some knee openings. They're about stability versus mobility. So it's hip mobility, but controlling the hip mobility while we're stabilizing the trunk and the pelvis. So walking through the feet, hopefully you can see my feet. You come onto the toes of one foot, heel onto the other foot, and you just swap over. But this just gets the calf muscles working and pumping. So really simple. So any activity that increases your blood from your legs to your upper body can help. So you can do that in standing as well. And then we'll come into a bridge. So keeping the pelvis in neutral, pushing into the floor, coming up into a bridge position and coming back down. So this is working with hip extensors. So big muscles, part of your key core stabilizing muscles. A really good exercise to do, quite difficult to do it correctly. So coming into your bridge, you need to be careful that the pelvis doesn't tip from one way or the other. For some people, their knees start to open, so it's maintaining that alignment is quite tricky. And also coming up into full hip extension. Coming back down again. So onto that, you can make it a bit more challenging. So adding on the marching feet. So coming up into your bridge, hold it there, and then just exchanging heel toe, really works your muscle pumping system, your calves, hip extensors, feet and ankle mobility, and also challenging your stability. we're going to come into a single knee fold. So we're going to take one leg up into a single knee fold and place the foot down. Floating the other leg up into a single knee fold. Place the leg down. So we need to think about engaging enough tummy muscle to make sure the pelvis doesn't move in any direction. So again, it looks really simple, but your legs are heavy. So you need to just use your tummy muscles a little bit to bring the leg up into a single knee fold, keeping the other upper body relaxed. The shin stays parallel with the floor. Your knee and hip flexes as much as you feel you can without losing your neutral spine. So you still should have a bit of a lumbar curve between your your back and the mat. So make sure that hasn't flattened. This is about hip mobility and pelvic stability. And then you can challenge that a little bit further by coming to double knee fold. We always take one leg up into a single knee fold first of all, and then into the double knee fold, and placing one foot down with control and the other foot down without speeding up the movement. So going again into a single knee fold, double knee fold, and then placing one foot down slowly with control and the other foot down slowly with control. Just remind myself of what I'm doing. So another exercise which is really good for thinking about alignment. Actually, it's a really good example of all the key principles of Pilates. So I'm going to start off with what we call backstroke swimming arms. So the arms come up towards the ceiling. One arm goes down towards your feet and one arm goes up and over towards your ears. And then exchanging. So this is a nice shoulder mobility exercise, but controlling the movement from the shoulder. Again, if you're hypermobile, it can be a challenge. Shoulder stability is quite challenging. And then I'm going to do a leg slide. So again, using a bit of engagement with my tummy muscles, sliding one leg out so it's straight, and sliding the leg back in. So engaging my tummy, sliding out, and sliding back in without any movement from the pelvis, maintaining neutral spine. So this is quite a good one to do, thinking about breathing. So breathing out as you slide one leg out, breathing in when you're there, breathe out as the leg comes back in. So the breathing pattern with this exercise can help with just the tummy engagement that's needed as you do the movement. And then we're going to add opposite arm and opposite leg. So now we're thinking about alignment. So ability to stabilize the pelvis and spine while mobilizing from your shoulders, hips and knees. So
Lorna,
yeah.
we have just had a quick question.
Yeah.
It says, on the leg slides, do you keep your toes pointed down as I can't see your feet when you move them out?
Oh, don't worry too much about the toes. The focus is on the trunk rather than what the feet are doing. Does that answer the question? I hope so.
I think it does, yeah, thank you.
So sliding the leg out, yeah. Opposite arm, opposite leg, and coming back. So breathing out as you lengthen. Breathe in when you're there. Breathe out as everything comes back in. So you've got the alignment, you've got the breathing, and you've got a bit of tummy, which we also refer to as centering. So stabilizing, different teachers have different terms, which is all about keeping the spine and the pelvis stable and just engaging the right muscles to achieve what we're trying to achieve. So that's a really good exercise which just incorporates a number of the key principles of Pilates in terms of alignment, breathing, centering, and also adding some coordination, having to use work the limbs in different directions at different times, which can also be quite challenging. So that's a few exercises lying on your back. I'm going to come up to sitting. So just adjust this a little bit, see if you can still see me. Hope you can see enough of me. I'm still here. Can you still hear me okay? I've just moved further away from the laptop. So I'm sitting now in what we call long frog position. So a number of exercises are done just sitting on the floor, which I know if you have PoTS, sitting is probably more comfortable in terms of the exercises that we do than some of the standing exercises. Some people find sitting on the floor quite uncomfortable. A lot of these exercises you can do sitting on a chair, or some people, I get them to sit on a cushion or a block or something just to lift them up a little bit. I'm just going to stay like this for the moment because I'm comfortable in this position. So we're going to think about waist twist. So a lot of Pilates is about taking all your joints through all their ranges of movement. I'm just going to adjust this very slightly. That's better. So you're having forearm on top of forearm, and in this position you want to have your weight even on your sit bones, lengthening the spine up. I'll just show you from the side position. So spine is in neutral. So if you remember when we were talking about lying on the mat and neutral spine, this is just coming back to what neutral spine, or neutral spine but in a sitting position, which makes it more challenging because you don't have the same feedback. And then rotating the spine, maintaining the neutral spine, it just gets your spine working in this range that we don't often do. We get stiff in our mid back. So it just allows the spine to go in that range of movement. So that's waist twist. So we're going to do a bit of side bending, so lateral flexion. A lot of people with PoTS struggle to have their hands above the head, so exercises over the head is not always helpful. And you can adapt that by just having your hands behind your head. So I'm going to do this exercise in this position. So again, sitting tall, you just flex over one side, coming back, flexing over the other side, coming back. Flexing over, so just taking the spine into some lateral flexion. So then another nice exercise to do is what we call spine stretch forward. So this is an adaptation of that exercise. It's now focusing on spinal flexion, but also it's a really good breathing exercise. So again, sitting tall on your sit bones, and starting with a little nod of the head, rolling the spine down, just allowing the spine to flex and rolling back up. So breathing out as you flex over. Taking a big breath in while you're there, allow your rib cage to widen, and then breathing out as you come back up. Rolling the spine down, and then breathe out as you come back up. So again, a lot of people, because of the neck pain, they just like the flexion feeling, the flexion movement, and find anything where you're flexing the spine quite nice, and you can get a bit of relief from your neck. Going back to the neck and upper shoulders, another exercise to do is one we call head nods. So actually, sorry, I'm going to stay sideways. So all this is a little nod of the head. So it's actually, the focus is on lengthening the back of the head. So the skull is nodding on the vertebra. So again, it's a tiny movement, but it just lengthens these muscles in the back of the neck into the head. A lot of people struggle with headaches, and this is just an exercise that can help just release some of those muscles a little bit. And then another nice exercise is one called chicken wings. I don't know why it's called chicken wings. So you're taking your arms up towards the ceiling, bending your elbows down into the side of your body, and then releasing it. So this is another one where the breathing can be used. So breathing out as you draw your elbows in, breathing out, breathing in. And you can add in a head nod. So this really works, just lengthens the muscles back of your head into your mid-back. So a number of exercises that are often carried out standing can be carried out sitting on the floor or sitting on a chair or adapted in some way. Often with my clients with PoTS, I start off lying down and then we gradually work up to standing. So there's no massive transition from lying to standing to lying back down again. So there's a progression. So as you move up to the upright position, you can just regulate your heart rate and blood pressure gradually. So I'm going to come to tall kneeling. So this is another start position we often use. Just see if you can still see me. Sorry if my head's a bit cut off. So this is a tall kneeling squat. So bottom goes towards the heels, spine stays in neutral, coming back up. Bottom goes towards the heels, coming back up. And with this you can add some shoulder flexion and you can add some shoulder extension. So a bit of work into your hip extensors and mobility into your shoulders. So that's just an exercise that can be done in tall kneeling. So then I'm going to come up to standing from there. Often with my clients, they transition from any sort of floor position onto a chair, just for a moment or two, and then come up, either stay in the chair or come up to standing if they want to. So Jane mentioned an exercise called heel raises. So I'm just going to show you a few things about this exercise. So really good exercise in terms of when you stand up, get the leg muscles working. So coming up onto your toes, place the heels down, coming into a knee bend. I'll just show you from the side. Coming up onto your toes, placing the heels down, coming into a knee bend. Now, things to look out for with that is often people who have particularly hypermobile ankles will tend to roll out or in on their ankles. So you get this sort of thing going on. So in itself, it's a really good exercise to focus on your ankle alignment, so joint alignment, which is what you need when you're hypermobile. So coming up onto your toes, in the correct alignment without rolling out onto the edge. And then with the knee bend, another thing that often happens is the knees drop in. So if you're going to do this exercise, or you do the sit to stand exercise that James suggested last week, bending your knees, make sure your knees go over your big second toe, and get somebody to watch you, make sure they're not dropping in. So really good exercise just to think about your alignment. And then there's loads more exercises that could be done in every single start position. We do a number of exercises on your front and on hands and knees, which I'm not going to do today, mainly because it's easier if I just stay more facing you. So they're just a few exercises that you could be doing. So just a bit of a summary, and then we'll see if we've got some questions. Ultimately, you need to find, if you're doing Pilates, you need to find a Pilates teacher, somebody who knows what they're doing. A lot of people want to do the online thing, which at the moment is kind of all we have, which is fine. But ultimately, if you do something on YouTube or something online, there's nobody there to correct you. And one thing with people who are particularly hypermobile, they need that somebody watching them saying, that's not quite right, that's a bit wonky, what's your alignment? They need a lot of feedback and a lot of tactile feedback to help with that. So I'm not saying don't use what's on the internet, but ideally use it in conjunction with having regular lessons with a teacher, so they complement each other. So another thing is how you find a Pilates teacher. I just want to share my first experience of Pilates. Went to the physio said do Pilates. I thought, okay. She handed me a leaflet. Cost was £11, £10 for a session. I thought, oh, that's a bit expensive. Put that to the side, and went down to the local gym. Paid my £3. Class of 30 people, and oh my goodness, I regretted it. I was quite symptomatic at the point. I wasn't medicated, so my heart rate was out of control, and I ate for days, and it did actually put me off Pilates. And it took about a year, 18 months before I went back to it. And then I picked that leaflet up, paid my £10, and I'm still paying my £10 every week. Have regular lessons for myself, and so I really hope that you don't make the same mistake. So you need to find a teacher who knows what they're doing. So how do you do that? Things to look out for: you need somebody who's been appropriately trained. Unfortunately, Pilates is not regulated, so you can have somebody who has done a weekend course and they call themselves a Pilates teacher, or you have somebody like me who's done extensive training. Took me about 2 years to complete the training. So the levels are very different. So watch out for that. So you want somebody who's at least qualified to level 3. If you're very lucky, you might find a level 4 qualified teacher. There are not many of them about. So just look out for that. Make sure they offer small classes, no more than 10 people. Ideally, private lessons are a really good idea, especially to just work through some of the basics. Do ask if they've received any training, hypermobility training. A number of the training bodies are offering specific training for teachers in hypermobility. And now with body control, I'm teaching the teachers on PoTS, chronic fatigue, fibromyalgia. So increasingly teachers are gaining knowledge of these health conditions. Also, a little plug. Jane mentioned last week, there is Body Control Pilates have really taken on board hypermobility and PoTS. They've now produced a hypermobility package with a number of workouts tailored for somebody with PoTS and hypermobility. Only costs £10, and it's a one-off payment. We are looking to increase that content as well, so do have a look at that. So I do some workouts on there. Some of the exercises I did today are also on there, as well as James Simmons talks a little bit about hypermobility. Just something that was mentioned in the chat, through the chat thing. Somebody said Pilates triggers their PoTS symptoms. I would say if you have a good teacher, they will learn to know, working with you, what positions trigger symptoms and what positions don't, and make the appropriate adjustments. If your teacher is not offering that, then I would question, is this the best teacher for you? There might be somebody else out there who can help you. So I think that's the main things I've got to say. Let's have a look, see some of these questions.
I've just noticed, Lorna, we have 7 on the bottom on the Q&A.
Yeah, I'm just having a look.
Perfect.
So dealing with issues, heart palpitations on sitting, constantly moving helps, but it's a bit exhausting. Yeah, I can believe that. I don't have a simple answer to that. It's something, if you can find the appropriate medication that can manage your heart symptoms, then that will make a big difference. Do you have anything good for releasing tight pecs caused by sternoclavicular joint osteoarthritis? Or yes, yeah. I think that's something you need to talk to a teacher specifically about. There are a number of tips with that. Yeah. So yeah, it's fine. Somebody says, a comment rather than a question. As Ron says, a good teacher makes such a difference. Mine is excellent and helps me adapt to the exercises, and I feel really safe. So that's the sort of teacher you're looking for. And if you don't get that with the teacher, go and find somebody else. Yeah, upper thighs, please. Yeah. If you look on my workouts on the hypermobility package, there are a number of exercises. Often the thighs, I don't think you always need to focus on the thighs. And the seated squats I did is an exercise that can help with thigh strength as well. But the focus should probably be more on your bottom muscles, your hip extensors. They are big, powerful muscles. The stronger you work them, the more you work them, the better off you'll be. Let's have a look. Yeah, YouTube channel you can recommend. So again, the hypermobility package, that would be a good option for you. Maybe Vicky can put the link on Facebook, or I can put it on Facebook.
I was just going to say that, Lorna. We've had a few people down the side in the chat ask where they can find the link to that hypermobility package. So if you want to email that link over to me, I'll post that on our social media.
Yeah, that's the best thing to do.
Perfect.
Yeah. So somebody with PoTS and hypermobility and CFS, building up cardiovascular exercise and find that easier than Pilates. That's interesting. I've been to Pilates classes and I find they really wear me out. I feel shaky and very fatigued after and the next day. Wonder if there's a reason for this. That's a very good question. I don't know the answer to that one, but as I've said, to do Pilates well, it's quite challenging. You have to concentrate. And if you have chronic fatigue as well, the concentration can be a challenge. And you're working muscles in a different way than some of the cardiovascular exercises, which is partly why it's so good. Yeah, so it's very difficult to offer specific exercises for specific conditions. Yeah. Somebody's got a question about, did you say it's one-off payment of £10? You need to find it. You can, we'll put the specific link on Facebook. The whole Body Control Pilates has this amazing online resource, which has got hundreds of exercises, which you don't need all of them. And that whole thing is about 120 for the year. But what I've requested from Body Control is to have just the exercises that are relevant for you would be great at a realistic cost. Because there are a lot of the exercises on there are just too hard, on the whole package, are too hard and not needed. So the hypermobility package is just key exercises that can help you, done by teachers who are working with people with hypermobility.
Lorna, could I just clarify then that the link I will be posting on social media will be just specifically to that one package of £10 and not the full package for the 120 for the year?
Yeah, that's
great.
Right.
Perfect.
Yeah. And if that doesn't work, come back to me. I'll work out why. Is wearing compression stockings advised in Pilates? That's an individual choice. If they work for you, then wear them. If not, then don't worry. I tried compression stockings in the past, and they went out the window quite quickly. I know some of my clients do wear them and they find them helpful. So that's very individual. Tight ankles. It depends what you mean by tight ankles. Keeping as mobile as possible. It depends on, ankles don't get tight, but specific muscle groups around the ankles can get shortened, and the only way to lengthen them is mobilizing them. Yep. Okay, yeah, good question here. If we're hypermobile, the exercises where you are seated in the frog pose, should we try and hold our legs a bit higher for control, as naturally your mind flop to the floor? Very good question. You can work within, what we say with hypermobility is work within your range of movement as long as you can control the movement. So like the knee opening exercise, if you can do that movement but stabilize your pelvis, you can go to your full range of movement. But a lot of people who are hypermobile are unable to control that movement, so the joint just flops. So again, with sitting in a long frog position, if you can sit with your legs out to the side and that's comfortable, then that's okay. But if you're having any pain or you're feeling that your hips are too unstable, then you might even need to put cushions underneath your knees just to lift them up a little bit. So it depends. I wouldn't worry too much about that seated position. Can Pilates be done with neck instability, or could it even help? It depends what you mean by neck instability. On the whole, Pilates will help with anything. Yep. So exercises recommend for nearly bedbound. So again, some of the exercises I did lying down would be useful. Also on the hypermobility package, the first workout I did was focus on people who struggle with upright. So they're all lying down on your back, on your front, on your side. There might be some tall kneeling exercises as well. What was your personal recovery journey to get back to skiing, cycling, running? I think that would be a story for another time. And my story, part of my story is on the PoTS UK website under in the story section.
I would be happy to share that on social media if you are okay with that.
Yeah. I mean, it's quite a few years old now, but it's still relevant, because it talks about, I talk about my I think I talk about my first going back to ski instructing, having had a period of time out, or what it was like.
I think that would be relevant to post after this Pilates session. I'll get that on the Facebook page.
Yeah, I'll just have a look what I've written, Vicky, and get back to you.
Okay.
Yep, so we've talked about that. What time do we have? I'm happy to go through a bit more if
We have some time to go through a few more questions, about maybe 10-15 minutes.
Okay.
If we are getting far too many, what we've decided, Lorna and I, is that I'll post up a specific post on our Facebook page for Q&A. And if there's any questions that don't answered on here, or anybody thinks of any other questions that they want answered, just post them on that particular post on the Facebook page, and we will potentially do a webinar with Lorna again that is basically a question and answer session, and we can have a look through some of the questions that have been posted on social media and go from there. So if we miss you today, then have a look on the Facebook page and post your question on there.
Yeah. Can building up arm muscles help alleviate PoTS symptoms? Very good question. I don't know about that. All the evidence is focused on trunk and lower body. So the more you build up your muscle strength and endurance and control of movement, and using the right muscles in the right order, the more likely it's going to improve your muscle pumping system to redirect the blood up to your heart. Can you control PoTS symptoms with Pilates alone? I would say no. I would say controlling the symptoms is a combination of lots of different avenues, as well as medication, lifestyle changes, reducing stress, trying to sleep better, diet, exercise, Pilates, lots of different things all coming together will make a difference. So I don't think there's ever just one thing. Each thing is a little step in the right direction. Can you do Pilates in bed? So I think I've mentioned that already. Yeah. I started heel raises after last week's web chat and felt ill for a few days. I know from years of experience, my uncooperative body, that it feels like toxin release, so would recommend drinking plenty. Any other tips of this? I would say, if you're not used to doing much activity, start off with the lying down exercises. To go straight into something like heel raises, you're upright. So really building up muscle strength in the horizontal position, muscle strength and endurance, and then gradually increasing what you do so you're upright, that will help. So yeah, I'm not surprised if you aren't used to doing much, then you're going to do heel raises, you might have a negative impact. Yeah, exercise triggers lightheadedness for me. I'm hoping to start off very slowly with the right exercise when this gets better. Yes. Again, there's a lot I can talk about exercise, and it's probably not one for today, but exercise, what is exercise? Looking at exercise differently, thinking of it as increased activity levels. How do you get back into it? But that might be, if we do another question and answer session, that might be something I could bring in, yeah, just looking at exercise in general and some tips, things that I've learnt. I like the exercises but struggle with lower back pain. Okay, yeah. Using it so that somebody who has lower back pain, which makes lying on the floor very difficult, can using a cushion or wedge be acceptable? So I would say it depends on where that cushion or wedge is going. Ultimately, you want your spine to be in a neutral alignment. If you put a cushion under there, it's going to shift that alignment so you're not in your natural alignment. It depends on where the pain is and what's causing the pain. If you are lying on a hard floor, then that might have an impact, and so it might have a negative impact. Having a mat, so some of my clients who find the floor painful, I might give them 2 mats or 3 mats, or you can buy thicker mats. So there's other ways around it rather than using wedges and cushions, if it's going to knock out your natural alignment. Yeah. So I'm very hypermobile and lost a huge amount of muscle due to other conditions. My question, when laying flat, even on a padded mat, I feel like tilting to the side, have very unstable pelvis all week. So weakness. How do I stop this feeling of falling over to the side? Yeah. I think that's something somebody would need to watch you or look at you, lie on the side and lying down and see what's going on. I don't think that's something I can advise unless we actually saw how you're lying. Probably the alignment's not correct. Okay, I've been told when lying down in rest pose that I should keep my back flat on the ground to activate my core. You keep talking about small gap between your lower back and mat. Is this better? Is there a big difference? So the question is, in my class, I called rest pose, rest position. That's a completely different thing. So this is what we call rest pose or rest position. If you're talking about the relaxation position, which is our start position, then your back needs to be in its neutral alignment. So that's a Pilates perspective, neutral alignment. The other movements will then start to activate your core or challenge your core. So a lot of Pilates is about maintaining the natural alignment. Sometimes we come out of that natural alignment, but that's in a controlled way. Yeah, that's a good question. I'm hypermobile, wear orthotics in my shoes to stabilize my ankles. Is it best to wear shoes for the standing Pilates exercises so I'm stable, or leave the shoes off so I'm training my ankles to get stronger? Very good question. Ultimately, you want to train your ankles to get stronger, so not using orthotics. But to begin with, if you're not used to doing like heel raises, you might be better off starting off with your orthotics and your shoes on, just for a bit of stability to begin with, and then so do some stuff in standing. Like if I was working with you, we might do some ankle stability stuff lying down. So the walking feet when you're lying down without the orthotics, and then gradually work to do heel raises without your orthotics and without your shoes. So I'd say it's a process of gradually building up rather than just going for a standing exercise without your support. Do you have advice about how often and how many reps for these exercises you just demonstrated, or is it a case of starting small and seeing how we feel? I say start small, see how you feel. If I was working with an individual, there might be, if I had a private lesson with them, I might give them specific homework to do. And then there might be one or two exercises that they do throughout the week, working on specific muscle groups to work on whatever they need to work on. So it's quite individualized. Are there any exercises that can make us better at sitting? I struggle to sit at a desk for long of work. Not really. The main thing is keep moving. So even if you need to sit for work, get up, move around, do some waist twists, do some lateral flexion, do some head nods, do some head turns. The key thing is avoiding avoiding being static for too long. Where are you based? Sheffield? Live in Sheffield? Yeah. How to deal with constant hip and shoulder subluxation during Pilates. So one question is, certainly with hips, people think they're subluxing the hip, but often it might not be subluxing. It's a very individual thing. And again, shoulder subluxations, it's starting small. Again, that's where you need a good teacher who can help with that and just tailor the exercises for you. So I think that's the end of most of the key questions. I think that's all I've got to say, Vicky, unless there's anything else anybody else wants to.
Was just one that I think, obviously, because quite a few came through at once, there was just
Yeah.
one question. A lady has had a spinal fusion in her neck, and she wants to know if she should avoid the head nod just 1 month after.
That would be something you'd have to speak specifically to your consultant or physio who you've been working with after surgery, and get some advice from them.
I thought that would be the case. I would suggest obviously speaking to your team for that one. I think we've covered pretty much all of the questions there, Lorna.
Yeah, I think so.
And the feedback in the comments that I've been reading has been fantastic as well. So thank you so much for doing this for us today.
That's okay, no problem.
Hopefully we'll have you again if that's okay with you at some point.
Yeah, we can see what we can do.
Perfect. Well, thank you everyone for joining us, and keep an eye on the Facebook page. I'll post up relevant information there, and our next webinar will be posted up when we make some arrangements. Thank you very much, everyone.
Bye for now.
Bye.